Welcome to Beyond the Comfort Zone Live.
This is the show where we push leaders to step beyond their comfort zones, challenge their thinking, and accelerate their success.
I'm Aviva Lebo.
And I'm Renee Klein.
As Vistage chairs, we've seen firsthand how powerful it is when high caliber leaders come together to push beyond their limits.
Because no matter how much experience you have, you don't know what you don't know. When you're at the top, getting honest, unbiased feedback is tough, and spotting your own blind spots is even tougher.
That's where the magic of peer groups comes in. Our mastermind style groups aren't just about networking, they're about real collaboration, a space where leaders challenge each other, hold each other accountable, and unlock growth they never thought possible.
And that's what this show is about, too. Every episode, we explore ideas, challenges, and leadership breakthroughs to help you make smarter decisions and scale your impact.
So if you're ready to think differently, stretch your limits, and take your leadership to the next level,
Then you're in the right place. Let's go beyond the comfort zone.
our guest today is Eric Krucke. Am I pronouncing that correct, Eric?
Yes, perfectly. Yeah, well done.
Okay. You always have guests on, you just never know if you're doing it right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Eric Krucke is a former Warren Buffett CFO with over 20 years of executive leadership and M&A experience, including 15 plus acquisitions and a successful sale to Berkshire Hathaway. Today, Eric builds relationships with business owners to help them prepare their business for a transition or sale. Eric is a passionate advocate for business owner education. He's committed to helping founders become capital market ready in a safe and supportive environment. Eric is also a sought-after speaker, known for delivering clear, candid, and actionable insights. His most requested topics include capital market readiness, founder-friendly capital, private capital trends, and the second bite. He earned his degree from Florida State University, where he now gives back as a guest lecturer and program facilitator for the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Without further ado, we'd like to welcome Eric to the show. Eric, thanks for being on Beyond the Comfort Zone.
Oh, yes. I love getting out of my comfort zone. This is perfect.
Good, because we're going to try to push you there today for real.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. I don't doubt that.
Uh, so, Eric, why don't you start off and just tell us your story about how you sold a business to Warren Buffett and then worked for him for more than a decade?
Yeah. Well, thank you. It actually takes me back several years and to a time when I used to wonder what Vistage was. So we were actually a Vistage member company. My CEO and founder, Craig Ponzio, was a member in a group. And so I was one of those executive victims that would learn about Vistage once a month.
Of
But
course.
I say it tongue in cheek, but because Vistage has really supported uh, really so many people in and around me for a long time and actually played a big part in what I watched and was part of, which was the building and scaling of a business that became attractive enough for the world's greatest investor. So that company's name is Larson Jewell, based in Atlanta. And I joined the business in their finance team. And we had the privilege to move from a single location in North America to 26 and ended up in 13 countries and became the world's largest supplier of custom picture frame materials. So if you were going to take a piece of art or a diploma to be framed, you were walking into my customer. And great business, especially at the time we sold it. I think the most it was ever worth was the day we sold it to Warren Buffett. um, but yeah, so joined the company and helped in the path of growing and expanding geographically and many through many acquisitions as well, and built the team and our systems and everything around it so that we would be an attractive business. And in our case, we built it because Craig wanted a business that would endure a long time and be around a long time. In fact, it still is and still doing quite well and very profitable. But he personally, like many owners or leaders sometimes faced one of the big D's. So sometimes it's unfortunately divorce or disputes, but in this case, it was a health condition that was disabling. And so the first time, the first time we realized there was an issue is when he moved to Colorado, and we wondered why our hands-on operator founder was no longer here with us, running alongside us. And then just as life kept moving along for him, he realized the best thing to do was going to be to sell the business. So he had built it in a way where it could endure forever, and those types of businesses are very attractive to Berkshire Hathaway. And we bypassed the path of going on a full extended sale process, although we got ready for it. And we had the help of a really strong investment bank to do that. But the story goes like this. The investment bank called Craig and said, "Hey, would you like to talk to Warren on Monday?" And Craig's like, "Sure, let's do it." So Craig calls Warren Buffett on a Monday, and on Wednesday of the same week, after we had sent quite a bit of information on Tuesday, um, Craig had flown to Omaha and shook Warren's hand, and the deal was done.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's quite the story, and we closed it very quickly after we were ready for it, and all the steps that are required to do that. And within 60 days, we actually closed the sale of the business to Berkshire Hathaway.
That's by far one of the quickest ones I've ever heard.
Yeah, yeah. So it takes a lot of work to be ready for it. So,
So,
but yeah, it
Eric,
was a pleasure to work for them for more than a decade. So,
so speaking of that, quite a remarkable background you have, and I know it was an incredible experience. So, as a former Warren Buffett CFO, how do you spend your time today
mm,
serving business owners?
yeah. Well, very, very grateful that I get to do it in mostly one-on-one situations where I'm just helping founders and business owners that I meet, CEOs. But the majority of introductions or new introductions come either from people that I know or through the opportunity to provide business owner education. So I'm a big believer that the best environments are ones without sponsors, even though I've been a sponsor many times, um, so that whoever's in the room knows that they're in a safe place with no hidden agenda anywhere. And so I have the opportunity to speak in many places like that, and Vistage is actually one of the most frequent, being in Vistage groups nationwide, sharing and really just having healthy discussion. And then often that leads to one-on-one conversations outside. And 99.9% of the time, all I'd ever do is just listen and engage, and then help them get to know someone else that's smarter and better than me.
So tell us a little more about what you mean by safe environment for education.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. So walking down the lines of, I think the persona of many of us, and me being a longtime business executive, we face many inflection points, some that we see coming and some that we don't, and our teams around us, and even often the people we work for, depending on the circumstance, kind of expect us to always be on and to know what we should know is probably the word. And so, I've been around it long enough to know that we don't know most of the time. And so, in the case specifically of a business owner and CEO that's responsible for making sure a business not only has enduring value, but could be sold if it needed to be. And, I lived that life. Um, there's a lot to know to be prepared for that. And so, many, both of the learnings, but also conversations that need to happen, are reasonably private, and a lot about individual goals of the family, challenges with maybe your existing team. And so it's important that business owners and CEOs have a place where they can learn where they're not being sold something, first of all. That's the first leg. But they're also around people that are living it with them.
Hmm.
And not to overuse the term, but are sharing life or the life, which is really lonely at the top typically. But that they're not having to gather in-depth knowledge about what capital market ready looks like or how to leverage infrastructure to scale. They're not having to do that in a place um, where where it's being taught or sold and they're in a situation where they're running alongside people that actually are doing it or have done it.
Hmm.
But that's what I mean by safe environment. There's a big imbalance of power, especially for a potential seller. They're going to do it maybe once, twice in their life. And a sophisticated buyer that is literally their job is to buy well and then help that investment be successful. But us as a seller, in the case of a business owner or CEO, there's a lot to know, and it's better to learn it this way than just with your next door neighbor conversations.
Well, Eric, we had the honor of having you speak to our Vistage small business group of owners and founders, and there was a huge takeaway. And because I think people came in thinking this was just about how to sell or how
Mm,
to, prepare your business for exit. But what was interesting, and I want you to tell us more about why a great business to sell is also one that an owner can hold on to for a long time. That
yeah.
was a huge takeaway for our group.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm a big believer. I mean, think of it like this. So, as a seller, I'm an owner. As a buyer, I'm a future owner, right? So, at the highest level of expectation, which typically happens in a transition, if a if the market um, expects all these things to exist, and I'm going to be a future owner. But I think to myself, well, hold on a second. If I'm a seller, I'm the owner now. So why wouldn't I want all these things to be in place to have a strong business that has a very strong future outlook? And the reality is the value of a business at any point in time is its future cash flows. And not through the eyes of a seller, but through a buyer. How much are you willing to pay for the future cash flows of a business? So everything in investing is about, well, what will be my return, or and how do I adjust that for risk? So the higher the risk, the lower I'm willing to pay, right? So I take all those same tenets and go, hold on a second. If I own the business, I want to have the highest return or the highest likely future cash flows and a lot of certainty about it, confidence about it. And I want to do it with the lowest amount of risk, right? So if I adopt those same principles that any buyer would be expecting or using to make good investment decisions, then I'll build a business that way. And so in essence, I'm building a business that is able to be sold if it needs to be, or if I want it to be, but also building a business that can endure and build and grow value over time.
Yeah. I
So
mean, if you got the business someone wants to buy, it's probably a business you would want to buy too.
that's it. That's it. So
So,
hope I have them. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I know you developed a guidebook for business owners that emphasizes the difference between just growing, which is a common misconception that growth is everything, versus
Yeah,
building something that's really valuable.
yeah,
And I believe you call it the Warren Buffett way.
yeah,
What are the four M's that you talk about in it that drive value?
yeah, yeah. So it's always great to listen to smart people, and then it's a little better when you get to watch them for an extended period of time. So, I tried to learn as much as I could. And so, in thinking about building value and especially building enduring value, um, it really came down to a couple core building blocks, and I call it the four M's that drive value. And they are first, market. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, Second, management. The third is the model, and the fourth tenet or fourth lever, if you will, is money. Okay. So yeah, so and also I like things that all start with the same letter so I can remember them.
Let's dive into those one at a time. So let's talk market first. I'm fascinated with the concept of risk from the seat of an investor buyer.
Yeah,
Can you elaborate more about the importance of de-risking a business?
yeah, yeah. So it goes back to what we were just sharing, which is I always like to use the example of borrowing money from a bank. What do they want from you? They want to know they want to know that they're going to get the return they expected, and they want to know when they're going to get their money back, right? And so, I mean, that's it. It's that simple. And by the way, it's always good to put yourself in the shoes of anybody you're doing business with, right? So that's what a bank is doing. And so fundamentally, risk can threaten either one of those things, right? And even the risks associated with seizing assets and, you know, what would we even get if we had to liquidate this business's assets, or in my case, my home, would it cover the mortgage that I have on the building? So that in its purest sense is the investor thinking about and wanting and needing to understand risk. As I think about market, I think about the way I learned it even from Warren Buffett is it, the truth is what we think as a seller or as a business owner doesn't matter, right? Risk and value is measured by the buyer or the investor or the bank, right? So I often say what you think doesn't matter. That doesn't go over very well with a lot of business owners and CEOs. Um, but
It
that's the truth.
doesn't?
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden they're either leaning this way or this
Yeah,
way,
right.
But fundamentally, it's the eyes of the investor and or buyer that matter, and putting yourself in their shoes so that you can be clear on their expectations, what they're trying to achieve, and that you understand how they measure risk.
Okay, so one of the topics we talk about all the time in Vistage meetings is people, right? Upskilling, leadership development. Um, and so I want to go to the M on management.
Hmm.
Why is it so important for these companies to build a professional management team before they sell?
Yeah.
A lot of times these PE firms replace everybody anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So once we've anchored on the understanding and the view of the market, one of the quick things you learn in that journey is what you just said. Okay, so let's start with your last words. Well, won't they just replace them anyway? And I go back to that same tenant. Hold on a second. First of all, I don't know if I'm going to sell. Okay. I mean, there are reasons why I might not. Okay. Or I might have to change my hold period and hold on to my business maybe 3 years longer or 5 years longer. Right. But I think who's better suited to establish the right management team than me, who has built the business, knows the customer base, the expectations of customers, the suppliers. Why would I wait and let someone else do it, right? If probably 90% of the time, the very first thing a financial buyer, a private equity firm, or even a family office, one of the first things they're likely to do in their playbook is strengthen and professionalize the management team. Why would I wait for them to do it?
Mhm.
So, one, if I do it, the value of the business is going to be significantly higher. Why? Because risk is lower to that business. The other is the likely future cash flows are probably higher when that buyer or investor starts thinking about what's possible with this business? They're not saying, okay, what's possible with this business if I have to go create a management team and do this or do that? Now they're going, where we already have the team. So my risk is lower,
Mhm.
right? And the likely forecast they're building. Because remember, they don't buy you with the forecast we give, right? We think they do. They make their own forecast. So we want them very excited and confident about the future of the business and its ability to be somewhere different in the future.
Mm.
So that's the big test. If you're a business owner, you're a CEO, and where you're headed, you can't get with your team. We often build our inner circle and the team around us and really credit loyalty over a long period of time. And we end up with people titled with new titles because we maybe don't have the financial ability or willingness to invest differently. So we pay the lower salary and we just bring people along. After all, they've been with us forever and they
Mhm.
know, they even know our skeletons in the closet and they haven't told anybody yet. So we bring them along, and the reality is what we really need to do is build a team around us and our inner circle that's built on performance, not loyalty, and built on the people that have been able to do it already and have experience in where we're headed, not where we've been. Okay.
Okay.
So those are the reasons why it's so critical. And I would do it way before I was positioning the business for sale.
Yeah, I've watched the opposite of that before too, where someone's like, they're going to replace the team anyway. I won't worry about upskilling them. And
Yeah,
then because they didn't do it with their knowledge base, the private equity company put the wrong players in place.
absolutely. You
And
know,
that's,
absolutely. And we do care about our legacy and the team that we're leaving behind if we're not going to be there, but even if we're going to be there. So, but
mhm.
I would always say if you can't be gone from work for and meaning email, phone, text from your customers, from your team members, from your suppliers for 30 days, then you're not an owner, you're an operator.
Mm.
And you
Mhm.
got to move from being an operator to being an owner if you're going to sell your business, especially.
Great points, Eric. And speaking of being an owner, let's talk about the M that matters to all owners, which is money
Mm,
and being financially fit. And you said that bad financials are the number one reason that deals get killed,
yeah.
which we've heard time and time again. Can you elaborate and share more about how an owner can rate themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple quick things I mention anywhere I go. So I'll share those first and we'll watch our time. But the first one is in locking down your financial operations.
Mhm.
What does that look like? If I'm an owner, CEO, leader, and I don't get my financials within 5 days, um, I shouldn't be looking at them.
Mm.
Like what to me, financial information that's more than 5 days old is almost useless. Okay. And if you think about the day and age that we're in, um, there's no reason for us not to be able to know exactly how we've performed and why within 5 days. And the reason typically, number one reason why it's not is because we don't expect it. So I usually just suggest to the leaders, just go back and tell them that you expect it. And I think 90% of the time they'll get there, but nobody's going to ever bring it to you unless you expect it. And for some reason, this area is often set aside by an owner and CEO, and they're like, there's all these reasons why I'm commiserating with the team about why it's going to be the third week, or the sixth week, and the reality is I wouldn't have if I owned a business and I had a team that couldn't produce it within 5 days, I'd actually just stop asking. Like why spend all that money and why have that?
Right.
So that's one measure you asked. The other is how much of your time do you see in the finance team? How much of the finance team's time is looking back and how much of their time is looking forward. And what I want to see for the investment to be right is that only 20% of the time, okay, I'm upsetting a lot of CFOs and controllers right now. Only 20% of their time is looking back of the total team's time for finance. Okay. We have amazing technology, both in software and enablers and plugins and tools that allow us to do lots of things, almost all of them digitally. And in the past, I think it was required, likely, to get to lock down financial operations and get financials within 5 days and be able to do forecasting. You probably had to spend 80% of your time looking back because there's so many manual efforts and so many things that could go wrong. But those are long time ago excuses now. And so I would expect what we're describing and measure time. 20% looking back, 80% looking forward, which by the way means you're going to have a lot smaller team than you think you either have or think you need.
Did I hear you say there were three and we just got two?
Oh, the other end. What was that? Oh, a third. Well, I have more
Third
than just
financial
two.
one.
I have more
Great
than just two.
accountability, Aviva.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're here for. So give us
So
the
I
four
will.
financials.
Since she asked for a third, cash is not managed in finance. How
Okay.
about that one? Okay. I want every manager across the entire business to be a cash manager. And so it's a journey, but we want everyone to understand day in, day out the decisions they're making and how it affects our cash position, our future cash flows, which means we're going to have robust forecasting, most of which will not be done in finance.
Very, very interesting. I'm glad I
How
asked
about that
the
one?
third then.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
one.
So on to your fourth M model. Keep it simple, which I always love. We all love keep it simple gifts, right? I won't say the last one.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and
Silly.
there you go. Thanks, Renee. Um, but how many days can you be unavailable to your business team? And why is that an indicator of simplicity?
Yeah. Yeah. So I snuck that in earlier, right? When I mentioned you got to be gone at least 30 to be an owner, you've got to be gone at least 30 days. And so that's the mark that I use. And it's the mark that you have achieved this goal in your business model, which is you have driven out complexity. I would say 80 or 90% of the complexity in the business has been driven in it by leaders and typically the owner and CEO. And we who work for you respond to everything you've ever asked us to do. Okay. And we love doing it again and again. So in case you ask again, we have it. Right. So just even at that simplest behavioral science level, um, you get what you ask for as a leader. And a lot of what you've asked for, they're doing. And they've created lots of systems and processes and probably hired people to continue to do these things that have come up even episodically. And ultimately, we've driven a lot of complexity into our business that we can't even see. So that's just one example of making things simple in the higher, more strategic view. Think more like Warren Buffett here. Um, First, if you don't understand it, you shouldn't be doing it. Okay. Um, and just because isn't a reason to walk into an adjacent market just because it's adjacent, right? Most of us do it. We get starved for revenue at certain points in time, and we go, hey, while we have this problem, let me solve it by adding this. Okay.
Mm.
It could be products, could be services, could be geographies, it could be anything. Um, all of those decisions over time mount up and create a pretty complex business that's difficult for us to even for example, get financials within 5 days. But we end up allowing and driving this complexity into the business over time for at the time what appears to make complete sense, right? In the case of revenue and being starved for revenue, sure, I'm a team member and I'm responding to leadership's demand that I should never be out of stock of a product in a single location.
Mhm.
This product will never ever allow. Well, what what's the result? What can you expect? You're going to get what you ask for, which is a lot of inventory, way too much, maybe poor quality, maybe willing to pay as a buyer premium prices because I'm never allowed to be out of that product at any time, right? So I'm a big believer. Most of the challenges, most of the difficulties attached to ERP implementation, every element is typically because we've driven or allowed complexities just to permeate our business. But at the core, what we do is simple.
Eric, you've given us so much to think about, and I always love the way that you articulate some of these very overwhelming concepts. And I've learned so much from you in 30 days. That's really helpful just as a benchmark. So I know a lot of people want to talk to you more about this. How can a business owner get in touch with you to learn more and get assistance meeting the right people that can help them get a market view?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So the easiest way is in LinkedIn, probably and so you can make a connection there if you haven't already, and you can direct message me there. But other than that, I don't even mind a phone call. You can get in touch with Renee or Aviva and reach out. I'm a speaker in the Vistage Network, so I'm reachable that way as well. But happy to help. And ideally, I love what you just prompted there, Renee. The most important view is the market view because everything else we're going to do depends on what are the likely outcomes for this business, for my investors, and how do I make sure that we're positioning the business to last the longest and build the greatest value and be in a position where if it needed to sell, it could. And that starts with a market view.
So, and we're making sure your info gets in chat so everybody can reach Eric or Renee or myself. Got to close this out, Eric, with my
Yes.
favorite question because you said we were going to stretch you today beyond your comfort zone. So here you go. What is something out of your comfort zone that you've never done before?
Wow. Um, well, this is easy. I've never jumped out of a plane.
I gotta tell you, that answer is getting way too common. And then I say, I'll take you with me because I've done it before.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness.
Come on, give us
I
something else.
admire everyone that's done it because I just don't get it. Yeah. So, wow. I haven't been to South America. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure I count that as out of your comfort zone, but I'll go with it.
That's the reason why I haven't gone, right? I don't know, hey, what kind of food do they have? Can I drink the water? I mean,
It's
so
fabulous. You should go.
yeah.
Absolutely should. Well, thank you, Eric, so much for joining us today. It's truly an honor to have you as a guest on our show. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. Until next time on Beyond the Comfort Zone, we encourage all of our viewers to try something new outside your comfort zone because that's where growth occurs and life begins. Have a great day, everyone.